Welcome to Studying Law Around the World. I'm Claudio Klaus. In each episode, I talk with lawyers, law students, and professors from different parts of the world to talk about legal education, careers, and what the profession looks like in real life. We talk about the hard parts, the surprises, and the decisions that shaped their paths. Whether you're planning to study abroad, thinking about working in another legal system, or just curious about how law works around the world, this podcast is for you. Today, I have the opportunity to interview Jorge Barona. He has an incredible story. Jorge is an international lawyer, has extensive experience supporting European Union funded research and innovation projects. He has a very interesting academic background in Latin America and Europe, and has participated in a lot of international projects and has really a very interesting career. And I'm so excited to interview him. Thank you so much for making the time to be here today, Jorge.
Thank you, Claudia, for the opportunity to be here. It's wonderful to have a conversation with you, and let's hope make the best of it.
I appreciate it. And to start us off, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about, your personal and professional journey in law.
Okay, so my name is Jorge Barona. As you mentioned, I'm 42 years old. I'm Colombian. I was born and raised here, even though I had had the opportunity to study and live abroad. I lived in the US when I was 16. I also lived in New York for a while also. And then I went to France to study. That's my career has taken me there. Personally, I'm a dad. To mention, I have a 4-year-old son who I adore. I have a wife, and pretty much I base my law practice in keeping the values of being a dad, along with being able to maintain my career and to, I don't know, really find success in many aspects. Now that I'm a dad, I think is pretty much what I do. I moved to France in 2013 after I got a very bad experience as a lawyer here in Colombia. I got fired from a job because of an injury, and I ended up moving to France. And life gave me a second chance, so I took the most of it. I've been working in the EU funded world for almost 30 years, and directly 8 years directly. So that's been so far my career, pretty much summarized.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to dig in a little more about, your experience in law, your career. I see that your career, has taken you across Europe, the US, Latin America, just like you mentioned. And I'm curious, how did working in so many countries has shaped the way you see law, the way you see legal work nowadays?
I think it all began with the university, who actually I had the opportunity to study law here in Colombia, and and then I moved to France to my master's, and I live in France, I live in Germany, and all that opportunity or that experiences of sharing with people who with different cultures, different backgrounds. I remember in my first master's, I had the opportunity to study with people from 32 different countries. Then in the second year of the third master's that I did was the second year. I studied with mostly European people. I was the only non-European in the master's. And it put the foundations of my work right now, because now when I work with people from across the ocean, I'm able to adapt myself to how this environment work. How is it that I'm able to translate the law to these people? I work with people with not only from different countries, but from different backgrounds. They're scientists, they're researchers. They're mostly not lawyers. And normally when I enter a team, I'm the only lawyer in the company. And it's pretty much I've been able to adapt to each environment. So, and it has changed the way I see the law, especially as a Colombian, as a Latino guy. We're used to see the law in a very traditional way. I was sharing yesterday a story here that in Colombia, they call the lawyers doctors. And even though we're not PhDs, but it turned out that a long time ago, the diplomas in the law career, it says doctor in law. Now, so people still, you go to a law firm here, and there is mandatory to be referred to lawyers as doctors. And for me, is something that's very old. And it has changed my mind because when you work with European lawyers, we work with US lawyers, they care about many other things that people here in Colombia, they don't care because you need to be practical your way you practice your law. You need to be able to make the client understand you rather than speaking beautiful and speaking legally. So I have been able to have the opportunity to join uh, teams where multidisciplinary aspects are very fundamental, when you need to adapt, when you need to make yourself understandable, to collaborate with people, to open up, to widen your views of many, many things. So I mean, I'm very glad, I'm very blessed to be able to practice my law in this way and to keep doing it so far.
Sounds very, very interesting. And through this, I saw that you've supported more than 25 Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 projects. I'm curious, what first drew you to the EU-funded research and innovation projects, and especially considering the specific work you do as a lawyer in these projects, and then what also keeps you engaged in this space.
I I started back in 2013. I moved to France to study my master's, and back then my brother had just started his first company in Europe. My brother had been living in Spain for quite a while, and he, I was a student, master's student, so he asked me like, Jorge, can you help us with some minor tasks because the company had just started. I had no idea, so I started just working in helping contracts and drafting NDAs and small legal aspects because the company was small. I did this for a couple of years while I was living there, but not in a very big scenario. I came back to Colombia. I was working here in Colombia for the local government. And then in 2018, he gave me a call and he had opened another company. And he said, Jorge, would you like to join our team for just 15 hours a week? And I said, okay. I mean, it was my brother. It was something, it was an attachment there. So I started working in 2018, I started to work a little bit more. That was not only the projects, sorry, the contracts. It was the development of the projects, the research of information, the sharing with these researchers, because there's a task that I specialized in that is called regulatory mapping. That means that I go through all the legislation in the European Union to make sure that whatever comes out of the project is suitable for the EU legal environment. So I started this in 2018. Then in 2019, I didn't have a job here in Colombia, but I kept doing it with my brother. And I started looking for a job. And one day I asked my brother, you know what, can I make a proposal for you so I can be a full-time in your company? I said, okay. Uh, and then he gave me a full-time job. That was 2019 that I started. And ever since then, I've been opening my own task because COVID hit, one of my brother's company closed. We have some difficulties. My son was born, and I realized that we cannot put all your eggs in the same basket. So even though I was good in these companies, I decided to open my website and look for other environments, look for other companies, uh, contact people, go to networking events, and all this because the main motivation was my son. So I started to do, and I realized that I was very good at what I do, and because I was able to make myself understandable to non-lawyers, and in this environment, that is fundamental to be able to work with people who don't speak your own language. And because the first thing I do in a project is I meet with the project manager and they have to explain the project to me. Very technical. I didn't understand. Most of the time, I don't understand the technical part, but I need to understand enough to make the research and to provide the result that I'm being asked to. Because I don't know. Let's say I'm gonna do work in a project that is about PVC, the component, and I need to understand what is this. So I get in touch with the product manager. He explains to me. Then I realize, okay, I need to go this way for the research. Then I need to put that into a document. The deliverables are 30 to 40 to 50 pages long, and they have to analyze all the information and put it into this. So I became very good in that. So I don't know, I'm able to make myself understandable very easy to non-lawyers. And I realized that that's what I wanted to be. And because the best thing about doing what I do is the fact that I can be able to do my job, and at the same time I can be a dad, and I can enjoy, for example, the afternoons with my son. And because when my afternoons are Europe's night, so they're not gonna send me the emails. So I have the afternoon for my son, so I can play. They take me to the playground. We can go have an ice cream. So it has allowed me to work, to be good at my job, and also to be a present dad. So that's what I value the most, and that's why I wake myself every day trying to maintain this status quo because it has given me the greatest opportunity to be with my sons. And for me, that's the most important part of my life.
Amazing. Very, very interesting. I really appreciate you sharing a little more about your work and what that looks like. I'm curious to know here. I've read a little bit about your career and researched a little bit on your LinkedIn, and I saw that you often say that law should enable innovation and not slow it down. So I wanted to know, in practice, what does that mindset look like when you're working with researchers and with entrepreneurs?
I believe it should law law is a career. As a lawyer, you develop a lot of skills that normally are not used in an innovation and research field. Because when you're a lawyer, you're being taught to litigate sometimes, to get corporate counsel, or to this many aspects. But when you start digging into what innovation is really all about, you start realizing that the law needs to be aligned with that. We need to work together. As a lawyer, you need to keep yourself up to date, uh, to focus on if the world is going that way, you need to go with them. And as a lawyer, we're not used to innovate, in my point of view, especially as a Colombian, because we're very traditional. We don't use, it's very hard to get out of your comfort zone, to look for other scenarios. In my line of work, when you work with researchers, when you work with entrepreneurs, you need to give them something new, something different than everybody else is giving them. Especially, for example, for researchers, I have uh, people who I work with, they're all about innovation. So everything they want to hear is something new because that's what they're actually researching for. And when you come as a traditional lawyer and you don't adapt to the same environment, you're not going to be able to collaborate at the same rhythm as they're doing it. So you need to keep the same pace as they are going, because otherwise they're gonna find that, okay, we cannot work with that lawyer because he is still traditional into these aspects. Something that I very find myself is very particular is that here in Colombia they teach us that the more you write or the more you speak, the better lawyer you are. And in Europe, uh, NDAs are one page, are 2 pages. So if you're a lawyer and you're not able to adapt yourself to this, what your working environment is demanding of you, you're gonna be left behind. Yeah, there's a lot of lawyers who do the same way. I consider myself, I don't know, an outsider to my profession because I see my profession in a way that we need to change a lot of things. We need to innovate. We need to be able to transform our profession into something new, into something good, into something that has not been done in many times. And we lose the fear of changing. It's going to be a lot better for our profession, for our work. We need to evolve with everybody. And in Europe, the R&I world is moving very fast. So if you want to be a lawyer to participate here, you need to go at the same pace. Otherwise, they're going to leave you behind. And to be honest, I don't see myself in litigating here in Colombia. And I don't see myself going to court here in Colombia. I don't know. It's not the way I see the law. So I see it as an innovation tool. I see it as a way to practice. I see it as a way to work with many people, to collaborate, to evolve. So that's why pretty much what I do.
Very, very interesting. Putting all of these pieces together here, and the point you just mentioned that when you were working with your brother, then you opened your own website and all of that. I understand that to be your current company, right? The Legal Expert License Service. So I want to hear a little more about that. What problems were you seeing in the market that really made you build that role in that company? Were those things that you were seeing as you worked with your brother already part of this, or how did that come about?
Actually, the legal expert liaison is a service that I just gave it a name because I didn't know I was doing it. So it's very funny because I mean, my brother, he moved to Colombia. So I started to take care of his business. Something. So he started asking me for a lot of questions of topics that I didn't know. For example, tax law. I don't practice tax law. So I started to look for lawyers who can help us in this situation. Because I believe one of the main issues that I see that I have been seeing in my expertise is that lawyers tend to think to know everything, and they're yes person. So here in Colombia, you can ask the lawyer that he practices family law. If he knows about criminal law, he says yes, just to keep the client. And I think as lawyers, as a professional, we need to be able to realize when we don't know and we need to bring somebody else. So we need to. I'm a person who I I don't know everything, but I'm pretty sure to know who does. Know whatever you're looking for. So I find the right person. So I started doing this with my brother, just connecting with experts, and I started to translate. It just be the liaison between my brother and the legal expert. And a couple years ago, I was looking something to to innovate, to look for other service. Okay, yes, I have the EU, but here in Colombia, I didn't have anything. And one conversation with my wife, she was like, "But aren't you doing something like bridging with your brother?" So I like, okay. So I didn't want to put bridge. So I started looking for synonyms and liaisons sounded very good. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna do a legal experience. And so what I basically do is that I'm a bridge between entrepreneurs and lawyers. I correct you with the right expert and I help the entrepreneur to be able to get this burden out of your head, leave it in my hands. I do all the communication with the lawyer. I translate because normally what we were mentioning, people tend to write a lot. And something that happened with my brother was that he asked for a concept to a big law firm, and they gave us a 25 pages memo. And when my brother saw that, he told me, Jorge, I don't have time to read 25. You read it and give it in 10 minutes. So I started to, okay. And I was already doing my translation for in Europe for complex legal to practical legal. So I decided to adapt that here. So what I make sure to offer my clients is that I don't only find you the right lawyer, I find you the right person who is a lawyer. Because all the people that I have as an allies, I make sure that they are great people, that they're your parents or they're single, people that you can have a cup of coffee. If you finish talking about business, you can sit down and have a cup of coffee. I don't agree with lawyers who only focus on the money. Only so I find people, all the colleagues that I have been able to find and be my allies are friends of mine, people that I worked with in the past, who study with me, who I can vouch for them and tell me, you know what, this guy is a good person. He's not going to only care about, no, he's a person who is going to ask you about your family. Or if you sometimes have to cancel a meeting because your son is sick, they're not going to make a big deal. So I don't work with people who lose the sight of the human part of the law. And I don't also work with clients who cannot understand that you're a person behind, who call you at off hours, who call you on Saturday, who's no, no, no. I'm my whole idea of practicing the law is based on the human, it's on the person. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. To use our term that I use a lot in my work, because you need to find somebody who's, I don't know, there's a person you and I can have talk business, but if we come out, we meet in a coffee, we can have a coffee, I can talk about your family. So easy for me, that's the best part of what I do. So I focus my legal explanation in that. And so far, I like it. I'm building my network. It hopefully becomes bigger and bring a lot of clients from around the world because it's Colombia, have people in Salvador, Peru, now Canada, have here, the US, and people who I don't know. I mean, didn't reach with everybody's experience. So that's another good part about being a legal exploration because I get to know a lot of people. I get to know a lot of profiles. I get to learn about new things. So it's amazing.
Fantastic. No, it's been so fun to learn a little more about your story and also like what makes you you in many ways as a professional, but also as a person. And to wrap up today's episode, I wanted to ask you, looking back at your own career, what is maybe one of the honest pieces of advice that you would give to students or early career professionals in law? Or maybe even that you would have given to yourself if you could give it to, Jorge going to law school, uh, and thinking about building an international legal career.
So think outside the box. I teach me to everything I have been able to do in my life is because I got a little off track. And I realized that every setback that I have had in my life, it has given me the strength to just stand up and to keep going forward. Eh, and to ask, mentioning, I love to ask things. The worst thing they can say is no. Now I am in a position because of that, is that I'm able to tell a student, see my example. I was not the best student in law school, but I make sure I'm the best person to see the opportunities and to reach out to the opportunities. And because of these things that I've been doing, I've been able to be, for example, right now I'm part of this initiative that is the TED Law Initiative. And I arrived to this initiative as a serendipity moment. I was not meant to be in one another express, and I gave the opportunity and I took it and I chased the person who is in charge of the TED Law through a hole to give my resume, and she invited me. And right now I'm in this big initiative to transform the law, and it makes me I think that's one of the best things I'm doing in my professional career, because I think uh, to be in a position. I have a saying that says that in a world that we're right now, that many people are focusing on dividing and polarizing everything, to be in an initiative or to be part of something that is creating something, that is changing something for the good, is something that you have to be proud of. So in my experience, TED Law has given me the tools, the scenario to participate. This is just a started, so I can be say that I'm part of the foundations of this initiative. So when I talk to students, I tell them, you know what? Chase for the dreams, aim for the sun. You might hit a star. Ask the questions. There's nothing wrong with asking. Last week, I sent like 30 messages on LinkedIn to tell people if they want to see my portfolio for the EU funded projects. 15 have replied. And all of them has asked me to send them their portfolio. If I had not asked, I wouldn't be what I am. And I was talking today, like, if I had not asked my wife out about 7 years ago, I probably wouldn't have a son and my beautiful family. So when I tell I tell students, I tell them, you know what? Chase your dreams. Think outside the box. Don't think that because you're a Colombian lawyer, you cannot go abroad. Yeah, focus on your English, of course. But there are networks everywhere. You join, you look in LinkedIn. It has to be part of some initiative, whatever. Do it. People are going to I don't know. I tell my son that a lot of times. You want something, ask for it. You just chase it. Don't settle with the no. Yeah, maybe one day they have 15 days go ask, hey, maybe they have to change their mind. I don't know. But I don't like to go at night and say, you know what, I I was hesitant to go to New York for the meetings that I met the TED Law. And now I say, what if I didn't trust my gut and didn't go? What if I didn't ask? If I hadn't asked, if I was going to be able to be in that panel, I wouldn't have the opportunity that I have right now. And it was just a question. It was just one question. I told my wife, I wanted to be in this panel. I went to it. And she's like, no, but they already gave you one. Ah, one day I said, you know what? I'm going to ask. The worst thing they can say is no. And they did say no. But eventually they called me and they say, Jorge, do you want to be there? I say, yes. So to all the law students around the world, look for them. Look for the opportunities. I looked to almost 100 universities before going to France. Because when my dad told me you should move to study in the EU world, I looked a lot. I had a Excel sheet. My Excel knowledge is very, very bad. I got over 100 university. I sent emails to everywhere. And when the moment I set foot in France, I wanted to be the next year also because I moved with the idea of being forever. And I started to send emails. And I got the answer 2 or 3 weeks before I was already, my mind was to come back to Colombia. So you need to go after it. Nobody's gonna give you the things in a silver platter. That doesn't work like that. And especially when you are, in my opinion, I come from a country that we need to fight a little bit more because we don't have the same advantages that maybe other people have. For example, I wish I can go to the States to study, but yeah, first we need a visa, you need a permit, blah, blah, blah. In France, I was able to do my LLM. I'm not able to practice law in France because I needed to do another career basically, but I made it. And I'm able to consult companies in France. Why? Because I realized that this was the place to do. I entered a master's in France without knowing French. And I did everything in Google. And the professor told, how did you do it? I say, because I looked for the loop. They asked me for grades in French. I had one grade in French. I sent them. They had no idea. My master was in English the first year. But I looked for that. I don't know. My life is a whole experience or just asking, man. I told my wife that's what I want. The biggest example that I want to set to my son is to go for your dreams. If you, if you see this girl that is, just say, go for it. If you see this career that you want to do it, do it. I have a dream that I want to go to the Santiago Bernabeu to watch a Real Madrid Champions League with Barcelona, for example. I don't know. Every day I fool myself, one day I'm going to go. I don't know. I think about it. And you do what you have to do. That gives you the way. And if things work out the same way, you're going to be there. So that's pretty much that's my whole mindset.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to coming the podcast and share a little bit about your story, and especially this advice. Ask around, go after what you want. I love that. Thank you so much for being here today, Jorge.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I really liked and thank you for the time of sharing. I know your podcast is listened all around the world and it's very, very, very wonderful to be here. Thank you.